Welcome to our lovely future humans, our 5D collective, to those who enjoy inner growth mindset practices and journal prompts. So, we have today, with our lovely full moon, a new inner growth mindset practice. It's a 7-day one, and I'm going to start today's stories with a journal prompt that I then will use some of Maria's stories to explain it, share it, give you an example. And just remember, there's no perfect ways to do any of this stuff. Healthy perfectionists, we definitely know that all of those who are the children of God, or if you are of science people, we have one of two choices: emotional sovereignty, mental intelligence, or not. And when we see the ones who are not doing self-reflection or emotional sovereignty yet, we're not going to be there because it's none of our business. And at the end of the day, everyone can be love because everyone can have healthy fear. And with the integrated brain, our left speaks and our right laughs, or however that works, and we have a good time. And when things change outside, it's okay because we know how to maintain our sense of self, and then we know how the world works. And so when uncertainty is present, what part of you tightens, and what happens, what becomes possible when you choose emotional steadiness instead of staying tight? When you choose emotional steadiness, it means that you will notice if it's sadness for lack of bonding, if it's anger for you want to correct, self-agency, or fear, you want safety. And fear becomes curiosity once you have enough panic attacks. And light body, light body, light body, and rainbow body expansion, and basically window welcome to your emotional plane. Okay, so that's where I bring human elements to spiritual and spirituality elements, and we do personal and spiritual growth. And so the journal prompt, again, is: when uncertainty is present, what part of you tightens, and what becomes possible when you choose emotional steadiness instead? So for me, everything is easy because self-agent, got a twin, got a mom, got a younger sister, my immediate family, and I'm maintaining myself. I'm first relationship, then other relationships. Okay, so when you are 46.0 version and you continue smiling and you know God's perfection, and then you get proof of it too. Lovely Stephen Porge is still working on his stuff, but basically when you also know PDP framework, amazing, you have no enemies. Okay, so there's no monsters. The whole evil conversation that I hear spiritual bypassers and what are somatic bypassers using, I know what they're doing. I got to learn from good Christian Catholic catechist, Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, how to forgive, and then with my own communion, know how to share with you all how it works, meaning from Maria's spiritual life. And so from Twin Flame 1, 2 to 3, to seeing every single bit of what 3D, 4D is doing with all of it. They don't like us because we bring it all together and we use words interchangeably and we don't keep them all organized in the ancient times. And those are the left brainers. So left is actually, let me see, this one explains what the left does and the right. It's a very good book for any of you guys who want to, guys who want to purchase it. So the right looks at, it's empathic, recognizes emotional responses of others. It can have intense emotions, and it can tend towards negativity and pessimism, fear, mourning, and grief. While the left will then instead, emotion is cheerful, optimistic, amused, and it recognizes complex emotions but doesn't take things as seriously. So when you're integrated, you're working with both, which is why you don't actually put grief on a pedestal. I saw this pseudo-live woman. So pseudo-live means, and it's a person who's dysregulated, and it's a person who is a somatic bypasser, and they are talking about grieving in this way of making it like the stars. Okay, so when you get, I got attachment trauma educated, and you're self-sovereign, you'll begin to notice pathologies. You'll notice pseudo-live people. You'll notice the ones who do have fragmented states of self, so DID, and they're not doing anything about it. You'll notice people who are in basic dissociative moments, shut down with their little bubble, and a bunch of people who don't want to go to therapy because they don't believe in any of the science. And I'm pseudo-science lady, but I'm not pseudo-intellectual. Okay, so when it comes to God, He made us all perfect. Science helps people to get to their healthy perfectionism. But if a person, like my facade friend, doesn't want to meet themselves, because they have their core wounds and they prefer being their loser version. You got 3D 4D going on, and those are the mediocre people. And so let me get to the left. Highly focused on parts, develops abstract context, can get obsessed. They ruminate. And so that's not emotional steadiness. And so when someone's pseudo live telling me about grief and how amazing it is, because they're trying to say you become strong with it. And I'm like, okay, you become strong because you get curious, not because you're sensationalizing and making anxiety type energy, low frequency, out to be magical, which actually are what drama kings and drama queens do. So a person who's oblivious to their somatic bypassing, which is why spiritual bypassers think equanimity, being calm and centered, is bypassing. They don't master their emotional plane because they haven't learned to self-regulate. So in uncertainty, you'll see them. I have 40 friends. They're still living the same shit that they were living about 20 years ago at this point. Yes, I have one of my girlfriends. Just recently we got to chit-chat, and I'm like, okay, they're still doing the same thing they were when we first started talking about this whole twin flame and twin flame stuff. Now they've moved on from that, but they're still doing, because emotionally immature people, if they don't learn from a good therapist how to get out of their dysregulation, they're not going to move into their self-sovereignty. So it's a sad deal on things, ascension days like these. They're continuing to use stories, but they come together and hang out. So that's where it's not a good or bad thing. It's like meeting immature people, which is really what that is. Okay, so today we have different words that we can use. When I meet a drama king, drama queen, I know from a good therapist, they're hooked on it. That's not nice. And it's like, yeah, they don't think they're hooked on it. They think that you're a liar. They're not going to come to you to get healed. They think that they're living great. And they think that by telling people grief, that they're strengthening someone. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're not. You're just allowing people who are doing that. So here's a story for you. This was one of the 4D mystic people that I got, and another woman. And they're describing to me the scene. They're like, so this is what happened. There was a negative entity. I knew there was a negative entity. I told them there was a negative entity. They weren't listening to me, and they're ruminating. This is beginning to ruminate. This is when you got a person who's structurally dissociated in front of you. And I got all the attachment trauma acumen now, and I was like, okay, as I'm seeing what they're doing, I'm just getting worried about the situation, not the negative entity, because there's no negative entities. It's frequency. And so they're describing the scene. The glass began to break, and my glass broke. They're having an argument, and they're describing to me the flying glass, and I'm thinking, shit, did somebody get hurt? I said, excuse me, I don't want to be rude. I'm sorry. I just need to ask your eyes, the eyes of the other human being. Were you all okay with all this glass shattering? I mean, I'm getting you wanting to describe me this thing, but I'm wondering, and that means me bringing a person back to their prefrontal. Thanks to my, again, attachment trauma education. It's like, I was just doing what is normal to Maria. But now I know. So anchored in ventral energy people, emotionally steady people, in any uncertainty, we don't get destabilized. And when someone's in pseudo-aliveness, we're like, okay, hold on a minute. Can we come back down to earth just for a minute? And you interrupt that rumination, which is actually helpful. Doesn't mean it does shit, because this is not the only story. Wait for it. There's another woman. This one was even more. No, it wasn't. It was sad, to say the least. Point is, though, I'm able to support in a specific way as a friend. But the day after, I find out, after we stopped chit-chatting, that the individual took their own actions. And this is where, what was it? Intense tends toward pessimism, negativity, fear, mourning, grief. The right. So when someone's revved up and they're completely in structural dissociation and they're behaving, they're not conscious, is the word that the technical verbiage from attachment trauma educators you will use. They will think they're conscious because they're like, I'm not fainted. And you'll be like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. That you can't talk sense to people. So sense of self, you own it, great. You're going to stick around and have fun with the stories. If you don't own it, you're going to go somewhere else because you're not going to be able to follow, because that's what happens when you say, look, there's no energy vampires. I'm a mystic and spiritual. There's no bad energy anywhere. There's no monsters. God's great. I'm talking to him all the time. Ascended masters, future being, all of it. FYI, there's also physicists like Thomas Campbell who let us know love wins and that we will make sense of everything. And, you know, there's so many different stories that are being, no, there's so much different information out there now. So please, can we calm down? But 3D, 4D, they don't know how to self-regulate. So they're spiritual bypassers because they're somatic bypassers. They are pseudo live people, and they continue with their stories because that's the whole part of where they reject, noticing that their sadness and their anger and their fear is not being handled. Surprise, happiness, disgust. So, for example, I got asked in one of the lives, it was a couple months ago, about guru and cult. And they were trying to say that guru is a cult leader. And I was like, no, they're not. So the people who are confused about what a true leader is are people who don't own their sense of self. Because if you did, you'd know a guru is going to expand me. And I don't even need the word. The cult person is not. They're going to isolate me. And so when someone's telling me God doesn't need science, I'm going to say, yeah, we know that. But that doesn't exclude science explaining how all of the children of God can get to their perfection. And so inconsistencies are for people who are, to Maria, losers because they only have half a brain working. And that half a brain does this, as this book points out. Left is a delusional idiot, while right becomes a judgmental asshole. So when you have structural dissociation, the person the day after, as they're telling me what's going on, what went on, is like, okay, that. So did you notice that you were reliving things from your childhood and you're projecting, and that this, no, I wasn't. No. Okay, so you don't actively have the capacity to tell a person who's emotionally immature anything, because their ego will make up a story for you. I want to do that. My left 3 days before I even began the nutritionist diet. Those of you who are regulars, I had fun with it because I'm my friend. I'm not my best friend. I'm not my worst enemy. I'm Maria. I'm not going to treat myself like shit. So you use a self-reflective, equanimous tone, discerning, and that is actually the timbre also God. His timbre is not one that's, there's no monster. And anybody who has had monsters in their ears, well, I have news for you. I know exactly where it came from, and it's not from the sky. And, the saddest part is that they don't take people like Patrick McNamara seriously. Explains decentralizing of the self and religious experiences, neuroscientists. They don't take this seriously. They don't even get informed with this, and they don't believe their first 3 years of life matter. And so I, on the other hand, know exactly what people do from the moment that they begin with their adolescent essence, essential spark, social engagement, novelty, creative expression, as Dr. Daniel Siegel explained what this is. And so a person who cares about humanity. Uncertainty, yes, plenty of it. You're grown up, you want to leave a legacy behind, you are emotionally steady, and therefore you learn how to be a grown up who can anchor in their own venture energy. You don't have to be a therapist, you're just a person. So you're a safe haven, secure base for people. So all these stories that I have, I love every single bit of everyone to death. No, I don't want any of to be saluted. I have my lovely herd, and you don't reject and throw people to the curb like my facade friend because of being delusional idiots or judgmental assholes. In fact, that's why they think I'm a judgmental asshole, which I'm okay with because I definitely do know when I'm talking about something, what I'm talking about. But I won't argue about it. So here's where the left, fascinated child, and the right is an indulgent parent. But you're not your parent, you're a person. And so when uncertainty strikes, unlike those who are not in their capacity to stay whole, okay? So I told you some stories of those who don't know how to handle themselves. That's with twin flames, that's with everything. And usually, in fact, they're triggered by all the stuff that went down in their own home, and then they don't notice that they're reliving that which is their own non-metabolized trauma time, because they don't take Pat Ogden seriously or Stephen Porges or any of it. But really, above all, they get all learned on all this stuff and they don't go to therapy. And they think they can do it by themselves, which they can't, because you physically don't learn to self-regulate if you haven't enough of that which is called the window of tolerance to build self-awareness, accountability, regulation. And in the moment you're being a jackass, disengage from it and notice, yeah, you were not actually within reason. So the story of the person who's like, no, I was conscious of this was a threat. They made an active threat. I was like, even though you say you're joking, that doesn't matter. Person doesn't think you're joking. And the description of a bunch of things makes me very well aware that you're exaggerating and you're very upset. Why are you not taking my side? It's not about taking sides. I'm trying to explain to you that this is an exaggerated way of reacting and interacting, and I don't know if to say you're lucky of how things went or not, because this is the other thing. The person a couple years prior had said, I enjoy actually pissing people off when I'm upset because I get upset and I want other people to be upset. And so while somebody who is ignorant of attachment trauma education will say, oh, that's a bad person. No, they're a person who needs help because they're an adaptive child part continuing to protect their core wounds, play it out on a wheelhouse, and be delusional. In the meantime, think they're not because they continue to live their life with other people who use stories and pat each other on the back like the flat earthers instead of, okay, yeah, we all can be reactive. We get it. We all are potentially going to be buffoons. I know I've been twin flame 1, 2, 3, but I wasn't that big of a buffoon because this is the part of being able to consistently hear the answers, consistently understand. And then once I got attachment trauma educated, emotionally avoidance, basically have fantasy stages, dopamine hits. They don't really care to invest that. Okay, got it. Yeah, wow, that solved everything. I already knew by the time I was 20, there was no monster because I was like, hey, God, so listen, all these people, cowards, what'd I do with them? No, I didn't say that because I knew exactly what to do with them. All you need is love, and healthy fear comes with it. So when Jesus taught me how to forgive, it was in my good Christian Catholic catechists when I got my confirmation. And being rejected by people because God doesn't need science doesn't make me think, it's, yeah, no shit, he doesn't need science. But guess whose children those scientists are? You better betcha. So all angels, they're all here, and our 5D collective is here too. And that's why it's going to be looking good, because the future lives thanks to the intelligent ones. Obviously, that one is pretty clear. And that's humans. Oh, yes, my faith with humanity wasn't broken because I didn't get broken, because I didn't need to be fixed, because I'm imperfect and flawed like anybody else is. Believe in yourself. So when uncertainty hits, you don't lose yourself. When someone tries to influence you, you're not a persuadable moron. And if you do something that you know is wrong, with your clear conscience, you can accept responsibility, you take accountability, and then you learn how to continue to do that which is called integrity. So when I look at teenagers who are influential, these human beings who are grown-ups and groupies, I don't think they're strong. No, they're the weakest ones out of all of it. And if a bunch of people maintain their level of weakness, I do have answers for you. Where is it? Hold on. So the PDP framework, amazing. If you ever take it, I took it, the test, and know exactly where I stand. Yes, it's spot on. And I will let you know that it's an honor to give you information. You don't actually get to be poked when you are not somebody who's motivated by that which is called other people, because we build social connections based on mutual respect. So if someone's not giving me respect, then I'm going to know it, because they're going to be actually doing a lot of that which is called, like my facade friend. So pause for reflection. Let me read to you something. This is from The Art of War, Sun Tzu. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Okay, so when I was absent of attachment trauma education, I knew some things of people, and with the mystic spiritual aspect, I know of the souls that are connected to me and all that, because I am an Akashic record reader and I get downloads all the time. And so I know pretty much, you can name it. If I'm meeting someone, it'll be intuitive. But without the attachment trauma education and only 4D talking about their stories, I knew there were no energy vampires or dark auras, because again, there's no monsters. From my good Christian Catholic catechist, I learned about the Lucifer thing, and I was like, yeah, there is nothing. Don't see it, see a bunch of people. And that was it. So the moment that I got to moving into having clairs, this anointed, we're all not anointed, we all can be divinity, we're all not divinity. These words don't mean anything to those who are in oneness. It's like, okay, really? We thank the scientists for keeping people grounded in reality, because the reality is all of the spokespeople from the past, as the Dalai Lama pointed out, were there to bring us all together. And the ones who are rejecting and refuting to bring all of spiritual ones together by wanting to keep words and keep things separate, well, oh wow, I see ego. Are you actually one of those who doesn't know how to use two sides of the brain and just be ordinary and allow all of it to come in? You don't know the consilience approach. I see it really bothers you. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not bothered by science, spirituality, all of it coming together. The right isn't bothered by everything touching. It's the left that gets irritated. And that's the moment of truth. If you got a pseudo-intellectual in the room, not a pseudoscience, a pseudo-intellectual, they're going to begin to get all hot and bothered because they only want 5 things to work, 3 things to work, 6 only. So the minute you got a person who's already all tightening up, it begins to become nothing more than, I'm going to shut it down. So those who are enlightened will shut it down. It's also called function or child adults, because you're noticing the reactivity, and you're noticing that this is no longer pleasant, and then you're going to be noticing a lot more. Okay, so losers always have the same MO, the same strategy. They become defensive, they become argumentative, they become boring, and they become annoying, and they don't actually want to have a conversation, because a conversation would be expansive. And so with that, when you are dealing with people, the same thing goes. And so when you shut it down, it's because you're not planning to participate in that which is no longer an interaction that is of 2 that are getting to expand, but instead it's of 1, which is why Terrio calls it a losing strategy. It's just not a losing strategy for the person who is understanding. So with attachment trauma education, I found out what fantasy stages are, what emotionally avoidable people are, what pathologies are, what people with weak nervous systems are. And I'm going to say weak, I got it. Yes, I respect the ones who go and get healed. There's a bunch of them who don't believe in any of this, and they're playing drama on a wheelhouse as we speak. And those are the ones, when I say weak, I'm talking about the weak ones who don't actually take themselves seriously. In fact, they betray themselves. That's what irritates me. And it's not because it's my business. This is the other part. So see, here's where, do you understand what it means to know that those people won't ever meet themselves fully? But do you know what it means to understand what the first 3 years of life are for a person with implicit memory, and how from the womb that begins, and what it could mean for a person to have to deal with that? And that is of a child, not so. See, when you understand the actual 0-1-year-old, which I am very certain people who know, if you're still here and you have information, you're going to understand this. You're going to know what I'm talking about. There's a bunch who don't. So when you say 0-1, oh, you're being so serious. No, I'm not. I would want to put these people in front of that 0-1-year-old, all of the 0-1-year-olds, and have them sit down. That would be very mean, because I bet you anything that if they sat down in front of that 0-1-year-old, if they sat down in front of that 0-1 to 2, they would begin for sure. I will say that there's no shadow of a doubt, because you won't be able to sit and see a child in a certain way. Some people would want to talk about, I already know it, psychopathy. Yes, there's an explanation for that. So when you have knowledge, you're not going to create any of dehumanizing of people. They're all people, and when you have the explanation of it, that's why psychopathy, the word, I have neuroscience and a bunch more of people have explained the embodied brain. I don't know what level of education you have, but I understand that not only are they healable, they are people, and that they have feelings. Okay, so when someone says lack of imagination for evil, I laugh. They lack education, and that word evil means nothing to a person who's educated, because it only means something for the ones who are trying to divide people into groups of their likes and dislikes, and not people who actually want to be spokespeople for God. No, they want to be spokespeople of one group or another group, which is where ego is always in town when you got divisiveness, which is why the masculines are boring to empowered feminines. Empowered feminine have their own empowered masculines. Masculine is the left by itself with a bunch of, like my facade friend. So with attachment trauma education, I said, thank you so much for making me a better person, a better everything, because now I know exactly what I'm dealing with. I already knew how to handle morons when I was a kid because I learned easily. I now know how to handle them, not call them morons even more, feel sad for them, but not too sad, because they're betraying themselves by disregarding that they don't experience themselves fully and don't want to. But it's unfair of me to say they should experience themselves fully because they had torture, and some want to keep their trauma. And then I think, wow, wait a minute. So they're going to continue hurting themselves in ways because they refuse to actually sit down with themselves and think, wow, my 1-year-old who was so innocent wouldn't have wanted it. Like the person who wants to justify keeping their mannerisms a maladaptive doesn't actually sit down with themselves to think of when they were an infant. And this is where it's explainable. My lovely teacher Sue Martin explained it, as she also showed me what happens. She said, what does it take to suck the energy or the life out of a 3-year-old, something like that. And as she's doing that, I'm just like, oh my God. My 3-year-old could feel every single moment of her hand hitting another. So that's the part of where you're going to have compassion. You're not going to justify the ones who want to stay in their trauma. You're not going to judge it. You're just going to talking about it. So on this lovely full moon, how uncertainty is affecting any one of us who's emotionally steady, mystic, spiritual, or mindful, that didn't turn our back on God, that didn't turn our back on humanity, that know we're all not broken, nope, and anybody who is can get fixed because they can get whole. We're doing, as always, humans continue. Some will evolve and expand, others will continue to isolate, stay in their little ignorant groups, and nobody's going to follow the ignorant ones, because ignorant morons are actually quite distasteful. Not only are their mannerisms distasteful, their entire argumentation are distasteful. Their entire moronic pseudo-intellectual brain is distasteful. It's completely limited. So someone who's intelligent isn't going to want to be around mediocre morons, because it's not that they're dangerous, it's that they're boring. And they have the same lame-ass stories. Do you know how many years? 46. By the time I was 20, I'm like, there's no monster, Lucifer. Good wins. That's it. And I have friends that continue to harass my ears with their own stories because they're looking out in the world, and I'm like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Are you treating your neighbor good yet? No? Okay, cool. No, not cool. But I'm not going to make you be a person who works with yourself and becomes sovereign. Okay, so 4D, 3D, they just have, they're trying to make us get rid of our emotions. No, some are trying to help you understand what it means to emotionally mature yourself, then to actually embody the fullness of you, and then to be able, with your equanimous, calm-centered, discerning, thank you God, loving tone, have nice conversations, and maybe, no, not maybe, we leave a legacy behind for the kids. You can choose to be a mediocre asshole like all those people over there, wherever they're at, or if you want, here's what it looks like to actually be a person who can handle change, because you don't get destabilized, because change is part of life. And believe me, no, don't change my room, but that's my room. Okay, so who has a 3-year-old in the house? I got a 3-year-old. I want to do the diet. We're doing the diet. Okay, so when you're a healthy, self-worth, empowered person, you do things that are good for you, not bad for you. When you know what moderation is, when you know what mediocre choices are, you don't copy mediocre people, do you? That's why I'm a healthy perfectionist. So I am, for sure, every corner, you better bet. Do you think we have all the corners? You see, there's another thing I knew by the time I was 20, that no matter how certain I would want to be, that I would never have that. So I've said, because I know I won't ever have 100% certainty, now that I know that I can be 99.999% sure, I'm still going to always have that 0-1. So I'm going to have to get familiar with that one. Again, I'm 46. By the time I'm 20, I'm getting familiar with things that are uncomfortable. So by the time you get to Twin Flame 3, okay, so here, attachment trauma education gave me the answers. And I was like, thank you, God. Thank you so much for keeping me away from all these things that I didn't know, because at the end of the day, if there's one thing an empowered divine feminine can tell you about not only our own empowered divine masculine. So if you haven't heard the story of the whole oversoul, I'm not going to bring it to you all. I'm going to leave you with this. Every ascension energy, I've expanded more and more and more. It's gotten more and more fun to be a mystic spiritual one. And I make fun of 3D, 4D all the time. In fact, they're coming out with a bunch more stories. It's hilarious. Not to mention their timelines continue to, whatever. So I'm going to leave that alone. But my point is that when they explain to you what the oversoul is, and you're therefore saying, well, then it should be like me. Okay? Gonna give it to you that way. Just the opposite of you, that opposite energetic frequency, because it's not about gender, by the way. Masculine, feminine, it's amazing, the complementary that comes together. Oh, by the way, when they began to do the whole fake twin flame, false, good light, not light, then they're tainting it with all the other words, and now there's divine counterparts, and you're not going to end up with your twin flame. They began to change it all up depending on what collective. And then there's the other ones who are still like following some human being out there. I watch every now and then. I'm like, oh my God. So it's a clique. They've created, their little groups. But long story short, you think, okay, if they're supposed to be the exact, just the opposite, then they're going to be able to handle. So I was under the impression that they can handle life. When you find out that that's not the case, this is what I'm trying to explain to you all. You will be able to be a person who isn't upset about rejection or not rejection, or basically getting along, not along. You're not looking for emotionally steady people. Don't give two shits of people's approval. If you need people's approval and you're not working to become a person who can stand on your own feet with your own integrity independently from others, and it's not about you not knowing that there are moments of compromise in life, that's a whole other story. But obviously that's where people begin to think that it can be equated in twos. It's not equated in twos. We have subjective reality, which is why I can be an asshole to somebody who I wasn't trying to be an asshole to, and vice versa. Okay, so emotionally mature people with uncertainty don't get destabilized. Number one, to inflame, not to inflame, doesn't matter. You're not going to call somebody a name because they're doing something you don't like. That's what I'm trying to bring into you. So you're not going to think, if I tell my twin flame they're my twin flame, they're going to think I did black magic, which is where you find spiritual bypassers, okay? Because this is the one thing that I'm like, what? Okay, yeah, I know about black magic because I got some people who talked to me about it. I also know it went and bit them in the butt, because that's exactly why any spiritual one will know free will, which is you don't actually have anything to do with another person's capacity to choose their higher self and becoming their own open-hearted love. So you don't choose for anyone to love themselves first. Because at the end of the day, God encourages, comforts, supports, strengthens his children to be the best version of themselves, which every person has, which is why wholeness and restored embodiment and resilience, and the scientists who are proving this, are the ones who have the data. And that's where it's sad, that the people who want to tell me God doesn't need science have not noticed that science doesn't disprove God's perfect creation. It actually explains exactly how everyone is, with their embodied brain, headed home towards themselves. But as Gabor Mate will point out, someone pointed out in one of my classes, people have a bad gut. As Bessel van der Kolk will point out, you can't talk sense to someone. And as I've seen through those stories I showed you, I shared at the beginning, yeah, these people are still in their 4D frequency, because they're still insecure, emotionally immature people, like my facade friend, who, when his choice points came about and I was his friend again, and then we're having a conversation together and he is admitting to being an asshole, what does he do? He doesn't actually take the opportunity to believe in himself. He compromises. Compromising is the version of a person like my friend who stays in a frequency that is of, for Maria, you're not strong, you're a loser. For a person who doesn't feel that they can, and here's where come on in, Bessel van der Kolk, the default mode network, they feel helpless and hopeless, which is where a child of God won't feel helpless or hopeless. But we also won't be calling people monsters that are doing things, and we also won't be giving them pedestals and giving them a role, which is what other people have been doing, the mystic community that can channel and download. I've seen it. I'm like, okay, are you done actually giving people a good role and a bad role? But that's the part of, again, I understand different voices for different people. So if you have groups that need each other's approval, like the flat earthers, like the twin flame groups, like the people who are being their little groupies, that's where you have those who I consider small, because they're all copying each other, like Peter Pan and the Lost Boys with Wendy, but they're wanting to use big words and make groups out of that, which are their brothers and sisters, by the way, which then makes me think of Cain and Abel. But I don't need that story. All I need is one, if not a bazillion of my courses to know, wow, they all need therapy, the insecure ones. They don't know how to self-regulate. They feel very insecure and invalidated. They have shame. They have shame, blame, fault, revenge. They don't know how to use the default mode network. Yeah, their neuroception is not theirs. Yeah, no, I know exactly what my facade friend did. I told him that he's going to have the life he wants in the future because he's not having it this lifetime. He's like, yeah, that is my life. I'm like, yeah, I know what you want. So when people give up on themselves because they never even try betting on themselves, and they, again, don't have the capacity to do it on their own. So I'm going to pause again. I'm a healthy perfectionist. I'm trying to spell that one out because I know who's going to resonate with being that which is called, I'm not helpless and hopeless. I have air, water, food. I have 2 hands and I have 2 feet. I can get up tomorrow and do it again. I'll get up again and again, again. But you better bet I won't betray myself because of a bunch of people out there who might like me or not like me. Okay, so the ones who wear masks, I have nothing to say except for thanks to Dr. Dan with the PDP framework, I know those who are motivated by bonding. So they need people to approve of them. I don't need that. This person is motivated by one thing. I want physical safety. Then the second thing is self-agency, which means that if I did something in a way that was not great and I knew that I wasn't able to, well, it's my weak spot, math. I mean, I don't like it, but it's not my best thing. Unconditionally loving with flaws and imperfections. So we don't judge our brothers and sisters, you understand, and the ones who maintain their low frequency, God never gives you more than what you can handle. We don't turn our back on God. We don't turn our back on humanity. Humanity is not broken. They're imperfect like we all have been. And we will continue to be so. And our ancestors were ignorant. So they had stories to explain what the evil behavior is. Today we have science. And in fact, Michael Stone gives us a very nice criminologist scale, and they all need therapy, which is why I surround them with my magical powers with the therapist. And yes, wouldn't it be wonderful if that worked? But that's the part of where it's 1, not magical powers. 2, the sphere of consciousness, Akash Anima Mundi, God. Okay, so free will. Yes, let me talk to you about that. Have you seen cosmic karmic balancing take place? I have. And when it took place, I was worried, physically worried. And thankfully, I had a sigh of relief at a certain point. And when someone said, what, you don't want sweet revenge? You're not actually happy about all this shit? Excuse me, it's making me sound... Now you sound like my friends when I was a teenager who told me that I shouldn't want to be friends with my teenage boyfriend and that I should want to drag her across the street. Did you not hear? I follow God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. Like, I don't understand what doesn't click with these words. Is nothing. Yeah, no, revenge is 1, very petty. 2, no, that's just mean. And 3, why would I? There's nothing that the person did wrong that I would want to have sweet revenge on. Like, this doesn't make sense. It's also not anything to do with love. When you say you love someone, if you want revenge, it's not love. Love comes with healthy fear. Emotionally steady people don't get destabilized because somebody, boom, oh, whammy, there you go, tested. That's not a test. You just did the shittiest thing on earth. Loser, betrayer, backstabber, liar. How many do we have? Where's another coward? Bring him on. Bring it on. That's how Maria can tell you all about the cowards. That's it. Is the minute that I met them, I'm just thinking, I'm 4'9". I mean, I can't beat you up. Touch me, I'll rat you out. But seriously, what the fuck? That's what authenticity and transparency does. And so you don't change your mind when you see people who don't know what integrity is. You just think, they're weak. And that's where when Bethany Brand and Ruth Lanius informed me of what an emotionally secure person does in the presence of those who don't have emotional security, thank you, God, for keeping me far away from those who I would have stared down in a very specific way because I thought that they were strong. I'm not strong. I'm just not afraid of a person's eyes. And when people have very bad behavior, my mother taught me what to do. I don't have to go to her, but she taught me and be polite. And then here's the other part. So any of you have that which is called self-respect? Okay, so I'm going to ask you. This has always made my brain laugh about the love thing, okay, with just anyone. When it comes not only to the black magic thing, I laughed. I'm like, who would want to actually put a spell on someone to have them fall in love with them? That sounds desperate, and it also sounds like that's not love. And when I heard a story about a person, 4D again, who did this thing, and then it backfired, I was like, well, I knew it would backfire because you don't do that. That's not going to be what you're not just going. You can't break God. You see, you can't break consciousness. I'm trying to bring to you from human, spiritual, all of it. So this is why it's like, there's no way you can actually break it. And this is something that you'll think if you're in communion, you'll just laugh. So unlike the ones who talk about it in a different way, which is why when cosmic karmic balancing took place, I was worried and I was sad. I was like, I don't want this. Like, this doesn't have to happen. Nothing happened. It's not a big deal. Like, it's all good. We're all good. That's how it works when you're a person who's like, love is a choice. You will either grow into a beautiful relationship or not. Why are people making it such so? It's not a big deal. Breakups is what I'm trying to get to you all, and this is the one thing that my brain was consistently like, what is the deal? Even like with the polyamory community, it's like you're not poly enough, and monoamory, ew, poly. Okay, look, ew, really, wow. I mean, gosh darn it, how old are you people? So love is very simple, and also it's a bond and bonds, and it's created with people that want to be in each other's lives in ways that are intriguing. Curiosity, it doesn't kill the cat, and actively, if you're not intrigued by each other, then there's not really any relationship. Oh, and your amygdala completely rules on this, which actually makes a lot of sense. No, it's not technical. We all have a 14-month-old. Mine is always ruling myself, which is why my gut is always spot on. So that's the other part. Yeah, I'm not actually ever wrong when it comes to who I'm interested in. And if I'm not, I'm not going to become your friend. That's it. That's how it works. And so let me finish the story so we can celebrate the full moon. And again, where's my journal prompt so I can read? So there's no enemy, by the way. Once you learn all there is to learn about attachment trauma, it's like, okay, so either we got emotionally mature people over here, the intelligent ones, or we got the ones who are over there and they're continuing to do their shit. But we're going to continue doing our shit, and the world's hopefully dark matter, dark energy doesn't implode. So when uncertainty is present, which is always, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Let me think. What part of me tightens? Well, at this point, none of me, because I do hope dark matter and dark energy don't implode. I will do my best to continue working to have air, water, and food be something that people take into consideration. So I will continue harassing people about recycling. I will continue to do what I can to make the world a better place. And I will continue to eat meat and fish, because I didn't say I'm going to become a vegan. But I will continue to try and make sure that animals get treated better, and that our actual good hunters and gatherers, that culture comes up again, like we honor our food and thank God for it. Or if you don't want, you don't have to, but I'm saying we can honor our earth so we don't harbor resentment. We understand there's no scarlet letters, no hanging over anything. Humanity was ignorant before, they still will maintain ignorance sometime. We don't have to suffer, because now that we all know how to use our nervous system, the restorative embodied resilient ones, we are like, okay, the weak ones go with the Zen master as laundry, and the cynic who believes that there's a world that is about what is right now, it feels right. In the meantime, they're all feels, doesn't believe we can cry. And the people who don't believe in enlightenment, yes, we know who they are. Again, they have not yet moved into having a brain that they can have a default mode network that's downregulated. Mine is. And therefore, we're not helpless or hopeless, which is why I brought in Bezel van der Kolk, because he was mentioning they feel helpless and hopeless. It's why people need to follow each other. I don't feel helpless or hopeless. I'm the bossy one of the two twins, you see. I have a superpower. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. So in the womb, you begin to build implicit memory, although I was born at 6 months. And so from what I've gathered, at 6 months would be that. But long story short, I was born with, I have my one securely attached figure, because she can't disown me. That's my superpower, which is what makes me the most probably annoying bitch to anyone who doesn't have the capacity to feel fulfilled in the absence of another, which is why my girlfriends and boyfriends, all these people, you pretending, oh my God, such tragedy. Like, for the longest time, I have had people who have asked me questions about my love life in ways that I'm like, you do realize I'm an entrepreneur. I went to college. I have goals, objectives. I'm a happy person. I'm living life. I have social life. I mean, 24 hours, I have every single bit of what I want. Like, I don't know, you're pretending. I have cats. I don't have cats anymore. Not for now, at least. But okay, sure, I'm pretending. Yeah, you know what? Sure, I'm faking it. Yeah, you better bet I'm hiding it all behind. It's right here. So that's how you work with people who don't know how to be emotionally steady. What becomes possible when you choose emotional steadiness instead? So when you choose emotional steadiness again and again, and you're not helpless or hopeless in the presence of anyone, and you know self-respect and respect of others, this is why you thank God for keeping away from people that you would have completely dismantled in a way that I would have been very unproud. I would have been very ashamed, not because I did anything wrong, but because of my ignorance. I would have actually been that which I would not want to be. So when people say that you have a right to be angry, you have a right to, I have feelings. I don't have a right, I have them. I don't have a right to be mean to another person. because I'm irritated and I decided that my irritation is valid enough, that doesn't actually sit well with me as a grown human being. I'm not a 1-year-old, I'm not two, I'm not a kid, I'm not a child who needs to act spiteful. And the grown-ups who are acting spiteful, this is the biggest thing that, oh my gosh, I can't even begin to tell you. They cast a stone, they don't know how to forgive, they're not actually understanding that their body is completely, I want fairness. It's like, you're not going to get fairness like that. My facade friend to this day thinks I'm a pain in the ass. To this day, my facade friend is an asshole. And you know how many more assholes there are? And it's not because he's not my friend. No, he's an emotionally immature person who's a coward, who didn't go claim his life because he didn't believe in himself. So you can't make someone believe in themselves, which is where, if you feel confident and you don't feel hopeless or helpless in the face of uncertainty, you're going to find that you're not going to, one, fix anyone. That's not your job. Those are martyrs, superiors, blamers, savior complex people. Jesus suffered for our sins. I love you, Jesus. I'm sorry you didn't know about Stephen Porges and how to differentiate, because you'd have done way better at that time, because I know what you were perceiving, all those people with broken hearts who could, by the way, go get self-regulating and stop actually, like my facade friend, having Achilles heel. So they don't know who their enemy is. The people who don't own their embodied brain, they are their worst enemy. Then they hang out with the other people, and then they continue to, with their other groupies, think that they're badass. Think. Their low frequency is the reason why they're not scary to me. They're not monsters. They're not insignificant because they're human beings who have unhealthy self-soothing mechanisms, who are spiritual bypassers, who use ancient stories, who are pseudo-intellectuals in addition to the pseudoscience bit, and who continue to wield their mouths in ways that are not manipulative to me. No, they manipulate, control, and persuade each other to continue playing out their 0-8-year-old on a wheelhouse, non-metabolized trauma time, which is where it's, I can't even use words at this point because I wanted to say disgusting, but is it? It's not. Sad, I can't be sad. They're consciously choosing, like the structurally associated person who's like, no, I was conscious of everything, and the other one who's describing to me glass flying in the air and energy vampires, and I'm like, there's no energy vampire, stop. Okay, so when someone has subjective reality, as Terry Real points out, you telling them anything isn't going to have them be heard, isn't going to have them feel listened, and none of that. And even if you are supporting them, doesn't mean they're going to grow or expand. So you can't make someone believe in themselves. You can't have someone bet on themselves because you say, I believe in you. In fact, actually, you can't do any of that. Is only they can believe in themselves, which is what I get to do here. Help people who want to be supported to continue being themselves. So uncertainty doesn't test us because we're not helpless or hopeless, because we have air, water, food, human element to spiritual and spirituality. You have introception, extraception, all of it. So when you hear a sad guru talking to you about intelligence in his lovely way, and then he talks to you about yoga, yes, he doesn't understand what the human words are. I do. You can be restored in body, but if you're not an integrated brain, because you don't own your 0-8-year-old and you don't own your child parts, then you're going to become a spiritual bypasser. But there is the spirituality soul age group. So, I mean, there's other soul age groups, which is what helps me to understand to leave it alone, because the reality is, I mean, I can explain everything to myself between spiritual and human subject matters, but why would I? It's none of my business if somebody wants to become more or not, meaning I'm not going to set it in stone. So that's the part of where, as Thomas Campbell points out, we all want to make sense of things. I have the capacity to make sense of no monsters inside of anybody, perfect little angels. If they're healthy, then they're going to be love and healthy fear. Great, they're going to make the right choices, and they're going to continue sustaining and helping the world become a better place. If, on the other hand, they're in another team, they're going to give each other something that is called a home. God won't give them more than what they can handle, and obviously they're going to hang out with each other, and they're going to continue with their stories. And let me think. Wait. 3. Science tells us that there's a bell curve of luck, so some will just say it's luck. Others will go and talk about how consciousness and love wins. And so look at how many different ways I can make sense of that, which is basically everyday life. And the one thing that people want is this longing to have meaning. And this is why the 8th and 9th chakra is what we're mastering as the 5D collective of mystic, spiritual, mindful, living, loving people, that I've been mastering it personally since eons. I'm meaningful and meaningless, and I got to hone it all in when I became meaningless in ways that are beyond the I saw someone, as they talked about their story, if someone went through what I went through, they would have physically died. So this is when someone thinks that what they went through was a lot more painful than what someone else will have gone through. And while I appreciate that they're sharing that and I understand what they're doing, I'm going to let you know every single person on the face of this planet will have had moments where they will have struggled. This word means shit to Maria, because when I think struggle as strength, no, curiosity is what grew. Panic attacks were the most annoying thing out of all of what I got to do with my light body, rainbow body. Twin flames, eventually it was thank you, God, for keeping me away from every single one of them, because I definitely didn't realize what I was dealing with. Thank you, Peter Levine, Stephen Porges, Janina Fisher, and all the attachment trauma educators. They're going to enlighten every single bit of everyone, and Bezo Vanderkolk. And when someone's helpless and hopeless, it seems like they're making us get over emotions. No. You can stay with your little frequency. Just get away from us, please. Your frequency is so annoying. I'm not laughing because it's funny. They continue to create very boring drama movies and all of this, and then you get to see them in the street, and then you get to hear a bunch more of stupid stories. And so I'm just sharing with you all the 5D Collective. We're pretty much, it's not about being invincible. It's that you move from meeting one moron, another moron, and another moron. They turn their back on God like the teenage boyfriend did. They continue to blame a monster that doesn't exist. They continue creating good and bad teams. And oh, look, they're all drama kings and drama queens wasting their life away. On what? I don't know, but hey, I'm not there. So my facade friend, yeah, he continued to compromise. And I mean, he's happy. And he is definitely in the relationship soul age group. He got his one secure attachment figure. Yep, and that's what happens to a body that doesn't move into their adolescent essence with their prefrontal. While when you do move with your adolescent essence and you stay yourself, thanks, Dr. Dan. So it's essential spark, social engagement, novelty, creative expression. Guess what happens to the people who maintain their teenager asshole-ish version, like my facade friend? They don't know how to get it up on them in the morning. Like their whole energy, they're deflated. I have not one day where I don't grow more like, wow, I got so much, today I had so much energy. And then I found out it was a full moon. I was like, okay, that's why it was. So, here's the other thing. When it comes to Oversoul, Twin Flames, all that. So in the entirety of the journey, the only thing I can say is once I got attachment trauma educated, I was like, oh, thank God. Okay. I was beginning to get very irritated with 4D. Now I know what the fuck's going on. Thank you for saving me from what I would have been really upset about doing, because I would have been upset at myself. And so, yes, I love learning things, which is why what I've learned consistently is that there's always going to be something I don't know. So it's better to not jump the gun. It's better to sit and wait. And then I'm going to have all the pieces of that. So, okay, when you are settled into who you are, what you're doing, and things aren't going exactly how you want them to go, you're not saying, tarot isn't working for me, because number one, that's guidance. I have 4D telling me tarot doesn't work for them. They need a pure soul. The reality is they want things to happen in certain ways that is not happening. And so there's that. Then there's the other people who talk about it being society's fault. They're like, well, your first society's your home. So technically, if you healed your 08, became confident, and stopped actually trying to please mommy and daddy and really get over all of the whatever it was from home, you're going to do great, because society, the external, well, we're going through, as always, changes, and Elvis had to deal with it, and polyamory deal with it too, so do monoamory now, and we're all dealing with it still. So, really, we're dealing with the same stuff, but now we have smarter people, because we have intelligent ones, which is really amazing. So, in the meantime, I get to bring to you human, spiritual, and spirituality elements. I really enjoy all of it, and with this full moon comes a lot. So, you stay true to yourself, because uncertainty doesn't destabilize you. Nobody destabilizes you, and that's what I'm trying to get at. And it's because you have your own self. As a securely attached person, that's the one thing. And obviously, I didn't get broken. Like I mentioned, I was a 3-year-old. You can't spank me. It's my body. So I didn't get broken by then, and I didn't get broken with a teenage boyfriend. And twin flames can't break a divine feminine who's also her own divine masculine. Yeah, otherwise there's no divine anything. Oh, FYI, it's not about us being it, and I should mention it means you self-regulate. The feminine is the body. She's smarter than he is, which is why the masculines are the morons, and it's, okay, stop being a judgmental asshole. Hey, get it together. Come on, we can work together. We can work it out. Yes, we can. So two sides of the brain work, and it's, wow, thank you. So, no, I never told any of the twin flames who they are, because I didn't have to, because I'm not going to label them. They're humans. And the minute they will have began to do this thing called flip flop, flip flop. Okay. Wow, you really don't know what you want in life. That's amazing. I'm going to keep moving forward. God did chime in a couple of times. I chimed in with him too, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. And then I got attachment trauma educated. So once you do that, I'm letting you all know I was in college and people fucked and were miserable and I was confused. No, I said, don't do it. STDs, that's really not necessary. Intimacy is going to be amazing with the right person. And that means that you are caring of each other. Like, not, yeah, it's not an, you don't objectify. So there's people who don't and won't ever know not only the fullness of themselves, but what it actually is to be intimate. And I'm so sad for them. But some of them actually think that they're fine, like my facade friend. And so am I being, yeah, I need to leave it alone. It's none of my business. So again, 5D Collective, welcome aboard. Check out Spotify if you want to become a paid subscriber. There's some inner growth mindset exercises, readings, and spotlights. You also find some samples on YouTube. Let your friends know, the ones who like to deal with uncertainty with emotional steadiness, that there's also journal prompts on PayHip for uncertainty, for being yourself. There's inner growth mindset practices, 1 day, 3 day, now there's 7 day too. Bundles will be coming up so that you can, grab bundles of the different versions of things. And I do have plans for tarot to be included, and our 8th and 9th chakra. Have a wonderful full moon and have a wonderful time supporting yourself and others, because see, there's one thing about God: encourage, comfort, strength, and supports. The test, there's no test. But if there's one test, I'm going to say it's you stay humble. And the humility is not hard for anyone who has emotional steadiness, because secure attachment means I will continue building a secure connection. I don't criticize you. I won't do characterological distinctions. I won't shame you. I won't be insulting you. I have no need to insult a weak human being who has already shown me what they're made of. Which is the one reason, thank you God for keeping me away. Because if I meet a coward like my facade friend, all I ask you is to be yourself. That's exactly how Maria would speak to any human being who today I won't at all. Because today I know just how many people don't know themselves, which is a sad story for me, but hey, I'm not them. So when I meet someone who doesn't own the entirety of who they are, I feel sad for them, because they don't have the pleasure of it being all of the embodiment of who they could be. But then I got all attachment trauma educated, and I understand how scary it is. And I won't be judging them anything or dehumanizing them. I can say I'm irritated by them, but I can say that it's none of my business. And as long as they follow the laws and we go vote and we do things, the world will become a better place. Always has, always will be. So the ones who turn their back on God, they turn their back on humanity, and they continue to crap on it, or they want to make it sound like we're some special species, which, by the way, we haven't yet met aliens. And I do know external, yes, I have contact, but my point is grounded in reality. Maria is like, yeah, we haven't met them yet physically on Earth, and I still believe in the moon and all of this stuff. Like, I'm grounded in reality again. And I'm not in Alice in Wonderland. And so when someone is continuing with the pseudo aliveness and they're not actually understanding the depth that they could hold, I mean, again, it's to me, it's not a big or small feat, but I didn't struggle with emotions. That's the part. And I don't struggle with Maria. I have integrity on purpose, because yeah, I'm not going to lose myself because of morons. I learned what backstabbing liars are, and that's exactly why they can't be a monster, because a monster would have made me scared shitless. I haven't been scared shitless of that which is unkindness, of that which is lying, of that which is people who could use Terrio or Patrick Tam to become real boys and real girls. And I laugh at Pinocchio on the island. And I know a shaman for those who are the unseen, unsoothed, unsafe, and insecure. And believe me, I've seen them flock to the cauldron, and I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, this is now getting really interesting, because they're actually wanting to tell every bit of everything. So when you see teenagers hanging out, but they're grown men and women, you can't but think of Pinocchio's island, because they're all doing that stuff that Pinocchio was doing before he realized they became donkeys. The difference is Pinocchio, in the story, gets saved by the fairy godmother. These people are completely... like, stop boring us, Maria. My friends, I've told you those stories too. As I'm looking at one of my friends, I still see his face in my face right now. I'm seeing the image as he's telling me, I drank so much today, or something like that. It was 7-8 beers today, Maria. What shall I do? Look, the studies show if I quit alcohol, I'm going to die. I'm like, okay, look, the study is talking about something different. That's not what it's trying to say. Like, you're telling me that you're an alcoholic? Is that what you're telling me? No, well, I don't know. Like, well, what do you want me to do with this information? Oh, I'm smoking too. Well, yeah, I smoked too. I smoke cigars still. Yeah, but, and my friend next to me is like, come on, Maria, we want to live a good life. And so while some will be talking about what is called cognitive dissonance, I'm not going to say they have to stop living their life. I'm just going to tell you all, I love my friends. They're amazing. I wish that they would be moderate with everything. In the meantime, though, it is what it is. So, Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. We continue to support each other, and emotionally mature and emotionally immature people get along just fine. And as for the laws, we continue to do the best we can to bring in the A gamers and share what the B gamers are doing, and then explain and say, okay, children, the adolescent essence, when it doesn't get maintained because those people don't own themselves, because they didn't get to become their real self, like my facade friend, they actually navigate low dopamine hits, and they're hooked on drama, and they're hooked on anxiety, and actually because of that essential spark, social engagement, novelty, and creative expression, as Dr. Daniel Siegel described, the adolescent brain gets hooked on these things in a specific way. So you want to build inner growth mindset habits now. Guess what happens when Maria talks to teenagers? Do you want to know? Leave us alone, which is why children don't learn from what you preach or say. No, by example. So let's leave an example of moderation and self-regulation, and continue doing prefrontal cortex workout. So yay! Join us here at IHP. Have a good one.